of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tune to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday afternoon. You're in tune to another podcast of Talking with Dr. Toy. Comes your way every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You know, I always want to give my purpose. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission to provide a holistic and restorative therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. You know, I always want to do a self-care check. How are you and what did you do for self-care this week? Very important to take care of self, and also have included another aspect of community care. A community care check. How did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? This aspect of community care entails asking for help. And I love one of the quotes that I have just kind of gathered with regards to this concept of community care. It says, it asks us to take the initiative to show and give compassion to each other, even if someone isn't doing that for themselves. Listen, the assumption that there is a certain way to take care of ourselves, there is an assumption there. However, not everyone knows what it means to take care of themselves. And so I think that is important for us to really kind of process and to delve in that sometimes people, whether it be their experiences, their past, what people have told them, their ideology, some don't even get or grasp the concept of how to take care of themselves. And here's the thing. Even if they're worthy enough, right? Even if they're worthy to take care of themselves. And so this is important that we know that it's both and, not either or, self-care and community care. And I love how there's more literature around this aspect of community care, saying that one is an extension of the other, and that you do take care of self when you are involved in some aspect with community care, right? You take care of yourself in powerful ways when you allow others to show up for you, when you ask for help, when there's an acknowledgement and an attunement that, listen, I can't do this by myself. And here's the beautiful aspect of it. We were not created to do this thing by ourselves. You know, when God created Adam and Eve, he said, it's not good. Right? It's not good for man to be alone, and God created creation. And so when we begin to just know and connect with those aspects, we know how in some ways our culture has deceived us into thinking that we're supposed to do this independently, that we're solely independent creatures, where that's not even how we were created to be. There is this aspect of interdependence, how we depend on one another. Yes, there's some things that we draw from within. Yes, that inner world. But there's also things that we have to draw from others. That's the way that we are created. We're social beings. And I know when we begin to begin to address aspects of trauma, that takes a turn where I can't depend on others. Others have disappointed me, had let me down. So I've had to turn inward for my own survival and self-preservation. Definitely get that. But and we know that if we stay in that position long enough, that disconnection begins to take on a life of itself. And we begin to experience aspects of loneliness, anxiousness, and depression. And so there has to be a balance, and balancing this aspect of self-care and community care is very important. I was listening to this seminar that talked about compassion. And that's one of the things that when we talk about aspects of self-care and community care, embedded in this is the concept and the notion of compassion. Giving compassion to ourselves and to each other. And I love this definition that someone put forth with regards to compassion is concerned with alleviating the suffering of someone else. The ability, I love this, to radiate kindness for others with the wish that beings may not suffer. Now, here's the thing. Can we take away anyone's suffering? No. But it's this process of, empathy, that I am feeling you. And man, I don't want that for you. What can I do to help you? Even in the process, in the midst of your suffering, I can't solve it for you. I can't make it go away. But how can I be with you in it? How can I support you in it? And it involves the intention to benefit someone else. And it's more than a feeling. It is a process. It is the capacity to attend to the concerns of others and allowing others to attend to your own concerns. It's a powerful notion when we begin to talk about aspects of self-care, community care, and how compassion is embedded in that. And we'll talk more about that. But one of the things that I wanted to address today, many of you may have noticed that I haven't put forth a new broadcast in a long time. And some of that has been due to some things that have been happening in my own life, spiritually, physically, relationally. And it's been really a season of some profound loss for me, a season of grief, a season of sickness and illness. It's been that type of season for me. And part of what I always want to do is that I want to make sure that when I am engaging in speaking to you, that I'm speaking from a place of hopefully of groundedness and discernment and connection with God. And so if I'm not in that space, or if I feel like I am not where God wants me to be, I don't want to put forth something that's not going to be directed by Him. I want to put something forth that is fruitful, and it's his guidance and His direction. And sometimes, and here's the beautiful part, sometimes when our own cup is dry and our own cup is empty, we begin to give out of those fumes, and we begin to get on this roller coaster of doing. I have to do this. I have to do this. And I think in some ways it's functional, and someone deemed it as adaptive functioning. But one of the things that we are wanting to strive for is not just adaptive functioning. We are wanting to be, as I have been educating you and encouraging you to be emotionally, physiologically, psychologically, spiritually well, right? So that we can enhance aspects of our life. And although many of us may be concerned about the quantity of life, as far as how old, would I live to be, but what about that other aspect of quality? And so I want to lift up today in just my own journey, and hopefully this will benefit you. Just the power of pause. I've been thinking about this season that I've been in my life, and it's definitely been a trying season. But in the midst of that, my prayer has always been that God, you will use this and show me, show me you, and how this will, and how all this may work together for your glory and for your good. And do I know that? No, I don't know all of it. Someone was talking about this thing of how we try to figure stuff out, try to gain clarity. And I think sometimes that's a way of us trying to control our narrative. And I get it. But sometimes when we're walking in this space of spirituality, we may not have clarity. And all we may have is, who do we know God to be in our lives? And that trust. And even though I can't see it, even though I can't trace it, I know that there's a constant that is there, and that's his presence, because he promised he would never leave us nor forsake us. So he's the guide. And as I'm trusting him, and sometimes I don't I don't do it perfectly, and we probably all don't do it perfectly. However, I'm grateful that God is compassionate and gracious towards us and shows us mercy in ways of reminding us that we are made from dust, right? And so in my own life, going through this season, and not totally clear yet, and may not ever be, but just trusting, and God is sustaining, and I'm grateful for that. And this kept coming up in my spirit, this aspect of pause, the power of pause. And there's research about this, and I'm grateful for that. But even before I was really immerse myself to some degree in the research of the power of pause, I began to just look at my life in this season, that it has been that in so many ways. It's been a pause where it's led me to pause, to kind of get off the hamster wheel. And maybe it wasn't by choice, maybe I was taken off the hamster wheel, but it's allowed me to pause and to really not only pray, but practice the disciplines of spirituality, but to really just be still, the quietness, and to get off the roller coaster of doing. Even though I'm doing aspects of my life that will never stop, but do you know that you can pause in the midst of doing? That you can pause. And that's what I want to talk about today. This aspect of pause. I was walking around the complex in which I'm staying. I was walking around that yesterday. And in walking, I'm always many times in my head thinking, processing. And I was walking, and I always, some people sit on their porch. It was a beautiful day yesterday, and some people sit on their porch and just kind of take in the sun and all of that. And as I was walking, I came across this apartment complex, and this elderly lady was sitting on the porch, and she's made a habit of just kind of saying, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing okay." And, and we just maybe exchange some banter, and then I proceed to my walk until I come around again. And so that was the norm. That's what we did. That's what we do. But yesterday was different. Yesterday, because I hadn't been around in the while, because I don't walk in cold weather. And so hadn't been around in a while. So when the weather broke, I said, okay, this would be a good day to take a walk. And so I started walking and came across a woman and her pets. And she was like, hey, have you seen such and so? She was given the elderly woman's name, and I never asked her name. I said, she was on the phone with her, and she was like, well, what round is this for you? I said, I think this is the second one. She said, yeah. She was just asking, have you been around there yet? And I was like, I don't think so. And I was like, who? She said, she's in apartment such and such. I said, oh, okay. And she said she'll catch you when you come back around. I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, well, maybe she just wants to say hey to me again, And so I came back around, and I'm gonna be honest, at this point I was like, man, I'm just gonna walk around one time and just go back in, because I had some things that I wanted to do. But when she said that she's waiting on you to come back around, I was like, oh, okay. So I said, okay, I'll just make another trip around. Made another trip around, and she said, hi. And I said, hi. And she said, do you have a minute? Can you come sit? I was like, sure. Sure. And even in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, I want to do this. I got this to do. She said, can you come sit? And I said, yes. I said, yeah. So I proceeded to come and sit with her, and she said, I hadn't seen you around. I was like, yeah. I said, I don't really do cold. And I said, how have you been doing? And she was like, not too well. She said, I contracted COVID. I said, what? And she said, yeah, I contracted COVID, and I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks. I said, oh, wow. And she said, I'm 92 years old. And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, I'm so grateful to see you. And we proceeded to talk, and we were just talking about some things. And then she said, the world is just too fast. That's what she said. She said, the world is just too fast. And I said, wow, yeah, you're right. 'Cause even I'm fast. Right? Because I was getting ready to whip around there and just say, wave up my, throw up my hand, keep it moving, because I had so many things to do. And she said, the world is just so fast. And we proceeded to talk for a minute. And of course, I introduced myself to her, because I didn't even know her name. She didn't know my name. And she had some assumptions about me. She said, well, are you a cop? Y'all, that people who know me, y'all know I'm running from anything, from violence. No, I'm like Michael Jackson. I'm a lover, not a fighter. That's just not me. That's not what I do. And I was like, no, I'm not a police. Yeah, no, not a cop. I said, you wouldn't want me to be a cop. I said, I'm actually a counselor. And then we proceeded to talk a little bit more. And I think what I gathered from that conversation is that many of us are on this hamster wheel. And sometimes self-care can become that too, right? It could just become another thing to do, another task on our list. And we don't do things. We don't pause. We just do, and we're in a hurry. There's this sense of urgency. And there was something that I gathered from that conversation just by pausing and permitting myself to say, Toy, it's okay. It's okay that your agenda is delayed, because maybe this has been part of the agenda all along, to not only bring life to you, but to bring life to someone else. And this whole season for me has been kind of a pause. And I want to delve more into that in the following weeks. Someone said this, let me define what some have called, let me define pausing for what some have constructed it to be. And again, this is not concrete. You can take it in any way you would like. But I did like the substance of this particular definition of pausing. It says this: pausing is the in-between step. It lies in between our old ways and our new ways. It lies between this breath and the next one. It lies in between a conscious action and an unconscious reaction. I love this. And it talked about how there's this aspect of cultivating this sense of pause. It says this: without the ability to pause, observe, or reflect, our actions, words, and ways of perceiving are primarily driven out of reflex, are doing what we've always done. And sometimes these actions, doing what we've always done, or that which is primarily driven out of reflex, stem from the past, stem from the ways in which we've interpreted the actions of others, our own actions, the actions of this world. So it stems from our interpretations that includes our ways of being in a space, as well as our reactions. And with the research surrounding this aspect of the power of taking a pause, it says this, that it doesn't only promote relaxation, but it also helps us to take a break from the noise. And doing that refreshes us. It re-energizes us. Taking the time, and I love this, just to be still and quiet gives your nervous system a chance to regain balance. We are bombarded. Let me say this. We are bombarded with messages all day long. Our system is in overdrive, overwhelm. And of course, even our brain can't process all the information that we take in every second, every minute. And our nervous system feels that. Our nervous system holds that in many ways. And yes, we try to regulate our nervous system by implementing aspects of mindfulness, meditation, yoga, or whatever that is for you, watching and taking your breath. We definitely try to regulate that. But sometimes, as I stated before, sometimes even those things can be a part of the doing, where we still cease to really take a pause of stillness, quietness. And sometimes we're so afraid of that, right? We want to feel every second, every minute of our time. Because what will happen if we pause too long, right? Will stuff that we've suppressed, will it catch up with us? Will it overtake us? Will it drown us? Will it overwhelm us? Will my fears that I've been suppressing by doing, will they overtake me? Will they overwhelm me? How can I be productive by pausing? I am in this ever so race of trying to be significant, trying to be important, trying to be valuable, and the way that looks as being productive. Will my productivity be compromised by pausing? Will my identity take a hit because that's in ways in which I've become to be known as the one who can do and be and all of this. As we look in ways, as we look and examine the aspects of our lives and what drives us and what motivates us, the power of the pause can seemingly be a risk. I'm taking a risk when I pause. And so we look at it in the sense of maybe I lose. And I love how someone stated that just the mere definition of what pause has grown to mean, it insinuates that it's something negative, right? Someone said that the plain definition of pausing has been to say delay, to hesitate, right? And to hesitate because of uncertainty or doubt. So it gives this negative connotation of pausing, that if I pause, that means I'm hesitating because I'm unsure. And I don't want to be unsure, right? I'm supposed to know the answers. I'm supposed to know all of this. And then we begin to see ourselves as objects and view ourselves as objects instead of humans who are in need of places, pauses, of refuge. I'm going to talk about this in a way that I'm hoping that it will seep into your consciousness of how you have navigated aspects of your life, how we've been pushed to the brink of being and doing and knowing, surviving, thriving. And although those things won't cease to exist, how can pausing help us to be in our present moment? How can the power of pausing help us to go inward? How can the presence of pausing help us to connect outwardly? How can the presence of pausing help us to connect upwardly to a spiritual plane that is higher and is deeper than our intellect can take us? How can we do that? Why should we do that? And I don't want to even put a should on that, because sometimes with shoulds, it becomes a command, and that gets us back into this never-ending cycle of doing. But I want this to seep into our aspects of our humanity, of the power of pause. And that's not my phrase, but I love it. And to be empowered by pausing. I believe that's where it's helpful for us to hang our hats for the next few weeks. I go back to my the 92-year-old woman who said, "This world is so fast." And I could sense in her voice, I can't keep up, right? I'm 92 years old. I can't keep up. It's so fast. Why should she be made to keep up with a world that's too fast. It's too fast. And how can we, within our own inner worlds and maybe some spaces externally, cultivate aspects of pause? I'm going to talk about it. Well, listen, that's all I have time for today. Remember, relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. Maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. Take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye. You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.